as the principal partner at Aservio Attorneys and Solicitors. He brings a wealth of legal expertise and strategic insight to the forefront. Beyond the legal realm, he is a seasoned management consultant, leveraging his comprehensive understanding of law and business to provide valuable insights and guidance. His multifaceted approach enables him to navigate complex legal landscapes while offering strategic counsel to clients. With a commitment to excellence and a reputation for integrity, he stands as a prominent figure in the legal and consulting spheres. His contribution to both fields showcase a unique blend of legal acumen and business savvy, making him a trusted advisor and advocate within the legal community and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a solicitor and advocate of the Supreme Court of Nigeria, is also a management consultant. As our customers, please everyone be up on your feet with a clap and a shout. Let's make welcome Barrister, if I should say, Kester Elebesunu. Come on, let's make that applause better. Let's make it better. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm curious to know if, do we have a slogan? Does the school have a slogan? What's the slogan? Unfolding what? The latent talent. So how do you use it? Eagles music. Eagles music. Nice. I like that. I don't know why people do all that slogan thing, but somehow it just boosts the morale of those who do it, right? Many of us have ever seen that movie, the 300, about the ancient Spartans, right? You know the slogan. It says, Spartans are who? You know, even if the person is a coward, once they say Spartan, somewhere, somehow, some courage just comes from somewhere, right? So there's something about slogans. So I know some people who don't sleep at night, who wake up very early to listen to that. Right. So thank you. I feel honored. I feel privileged and elated. I happened to catch a good part of the last talk or last lecture. I haven't heard that kind of lecture. I don't know what someone like me is doing here, because I feel Mom has finished the whole thing. If someone like that, you know, took this podium, I can imagine the caliber of people who also spoke before her. So for me, I'm wondering what I'm doing here, really. So maybe like you, I'll also find out what I'm doing here at the end of this talk. So my name is Kester Elebesunu. At some time in my life, I decided that I want my kids to learn music for obvious reasons. And then my wife and I did some research. My wife is more meticulous about things like this. And then she said, it must be Eagles. I'm like, okay. We get something close to the house. We live somewhere in Lokogoma. So long story short, we chose this place. I think your other campus at Woomba was full, so we chose this place. And then I can say that I have never regretted every moment my kids have spent here. In fact, my kids are the envy of all my family members worldwide, because all our presentations and things that they do, I'm always like, in the family platforms, see, this one is playing violin, this one is playing guitar, you know? I'm like, yeah, you know, can your kids do that? You know? So I must thank Eagles Music Academy for what you've done. Then curiously, my good friend Gideon approached me one day that he wants me to give a talk. I'm like, what do I know? What can I talk about? Somehow I found myself giving a talk at one of your programs at your reception area some time ago. And it was pleasant because for me, whenever I give a talk, it's actually also a learning process for me, because it also validates my understanding and belief in the things that I'm talking about. And also I learn from the feedback I get from such talks. I picked something from what the last speaker said. The most valuable or value-adding lecture must be interactive, because it is a give and take. Because the person standing here actually is a moderator, not a dictator, putting out ideas, looking at the feedback, and then all parties taking away something that will improve themselves going forward. So for me, it's about interaction. I'm not here to spew and just, you know, and go away. I'll speak, right or wrong, and I'll get your feedback and then improve myself and you improve yourself. When I gave Gideon my topic, It's a topic that I'm sure we've all thought about, heard about, discussed at one time or another in our lives. I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. I'm just here to remind us about some self-improvement things that will help us holistically. Can someone remind me what the topic is? I tend to forget these things at times. The value of thinking what? Big. The value of thinking big. It struck me that we are all results of God's thoughts. How many of us understand that? We are all the results or the products of the thought of the Creator. God thought, and then he said, let us put these thoughts into actions. And then, voila, here we are. And then we are also created in the image of the Creator. Am I correct? So which means that we are also expected to be thinking beings, right? We're also expected to think and then create accordingly, right? I just want to point out something about thoughts or thinking that some very notable world-renowned personalities have put out there. How many of us know King David in the Bible? This man was reputed to be a friend of God. You know what it means to be a friend of God? I remember somebody who made a living from being a friend to the president one time. His friend was President Obasanjo, so the minute Obasanjo became president, he went and printed a complimentary card, friend of the president. We're laughing at him, but he became a billionaire as a result of being a friend of the president. So it's not something to be taken lightly when you are a friend of a powerful personality. David was a friend of God. So that means that there are things that somebody like David will say that you will take serious. There's something that David said that I want you to take to heart. David said that as a man thinks, so he is. Have you heard that before? The old English say, as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. How many of us have heard of Emerson Waldo? Was a very popular American philosopher. He also said that great men are those who see their thoughts rule the world. How many of us have heard about William Shakespeare? Right. William Shakespeare, one of the greatest literature writers in history. William Shakespeare said that there is nothing either good or bad except that thinking makes it so. So, in essence, thinking big means being able to dream and visualize what you can achieve on an audacious scale with no limits on your thinking. Dreaming and visualizing very vast achievement without any limits. Thinking big is about being open-minded, being positive, being creative, and seeing opportunity in the big picture. Can someone tell me the difference between the wealthiest and most successful people and us? The way we think, right? Yes, sir? Ability to be visionaries.
There were people that were able to capitalize on the opportunities that came their way.
All right, so, yes.
A lot of other factors, but the bedrock of it all is thinking.
Following every step to make sure that those thoughts come to reality.
Right. Among the world's most influential, wealthiest people, are there those among them that jettisoned the formal educational pattern that we had? Do you understand what I just said? Our formal education in the Western world, you have to go to kindergarten, high school, college, uni, and all that. Here we go to primary, nursery, primary, university. Can you recall some of them who did not go within that formal process, but are among the wealthiest, most influential people on earth today? Richard Branson, Virgin Atlantic, yes sir. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. Bill Gates, Microsoft. Steve Jobs. If they were your relatives, when at the point at which they made those decisions, what would be your first thought? Wait. Yeah? Right? But now, if they are relatives, you'll be like, you print complimentary card now. The brother to Steve Jobs, brother to Mark Zuckerberg. I always used to imagine, I have this sentimental love for ICT business. I'm an entrepreneur. I love business apart from being a lawyer. So whenever I hear business ideas, I'm always captivated. Okay, well, how do we do, So I've always had this dream that I'll make some money from IT business. I don't know, I'm not an IT expert, but I just love the idea of making money. There's this .com millionaires. There's this phrase that was popular in America back in the days. .com is a .com millionaire. Just made 1 billion. So I love that thing. So I always used to think, imagine if you read there's this movie about Mark Zuckerberg. Forgotten the name of the movie, about his life, how he made it, right? He called some of his friends. He called several of them. But I think about 5 of them, out of many he called, only 5 of them came for that meeting. And then majority of those 5 are billionaires today. Not because they are very intelligent, but because they just tagged along with him, right? So they were at the right place at the right time. But some said, "Hey, go and sit down. We can't use this guy with this." So, but the difference between us and these people is their thought process and not their educational qualifications. Thinking big rather than thinking small can make it much simpler to succeed because there is less competition at the top of the scale than at the bottom. It is better to go big and aim for the stars, and then you land on the moon. The aim of thinking big, of course, to achieve financial advancement, work promotions, positive outlook on life, fulfilling relationships, and lasting happiness. But if you think big, you will not only reach but surpass your goals. You will be happier and bigger with a bigger life. I used to think that these guys I talked about, that maybe they were aliens from another planet or something. You know, I imagined I have this vivid imagination. If I see somebody like Elon Musk now, I'll choke him and say, I'm sure it will be blue blood or green blood that will flow from. How do these guys think? You just wake up and then you see the guy has $100 billion. Then he's still standing there looking normal, maybe wearing jeans. Are you normal? When one way here in Nigeria that has like 500 million naira will just be scattering everywhere, doesn't want anybody to hear word. I'm not sure those guys are normal human beings now. Come on. These guys have so my quest to understand how they think got me to, I met someone who I now consider a mentor. This young man, the first time I heard about him, you know, I said, let me just, I was told that there was somebody, a motivational speaker, giving a talk in Sheraton some years ago. So I went, I said, it's free. I said, okay, it's free. I don't have any. Before the guy came out, they were saying, this guy, they were just talking, this guy. The next thing, I saw one guy doing like this, walking, coming. I said, is this the guy that they'll be talking about? I mean, what kind of rubbish? The guy just took the podium, started insulting me and everybody there. But do you know that everything that guy said that day changed my life? I'll tell you for free. His name is Ugochukwu Meogu. The guy told us that, look, he was talking about wealth creation. But his approach to wealth creation is holistic. He engages your thought process. It changes the way you think so that you understand that, you know, he made us understand that what we learn in school is somebody's idea of education. And that education, that four-wall learning education is actually calculated at making you a slave to a system. But that if you must excel, you have to think differently, change your thinking pattern, and think big. So when Ogochukwu panebited me mentally, I decided that I needed to expand my knowledge base. And then I started reading. And one of the books I read, I wonder I think I should write my own book instead of advertising another man's book. One of the books I read, it's called The Magic of Thinking Big. How many of us have seen this book before? The Magic of Thinking Big. I'm sure we see it, but we don't know the value of it. You see, one of the things you can do, two things you can do to expand, to think big, or to be different, think differently. You travel widely, which is very expensive, or you read widely, which is less expensive. Are we together? These are the two things that can expand your frame of reference. To excel, to think differently, to be like those people we are talking about, you must expand your frame of reference. You know what it means by when I say frame of reference? The basis upon which you view life, your personal or world view, is what determines your outcome. Are we together? Your personal and the world view is what determines your outcome. Our forefathers in the village who thought that the extent or the ultimate in life was to drink palm wine and do all those things and all that, didn't see the need to leave that environment and then go elsewhere and expand. Are we together? But people like Mark Zuckerberg and all those other people we're talking about, they were able to see things that their peers could not see. That's why I imagine that these guys are not human beings now. I'm sure there's another blood. Because you can't see that thing. But yes, you visualize it. You risk everything to pursue that thing you cannot see. One very foolish man I saw in the Bible that tried that was Abraham. Very foolish man, oh. Very, very foolish man. You are a billionaire. You know Abraham was a billionaire in the land of Ur of Chaldees? He was. But he left those things because Something somewhere said, leave that thing and go after something. You understand? So your capacity to see something that others cannot see. Imagine the possibilities. That's the first step. Imagine the possibilities. I just talked about Abraham. He imagined the possibility. He developed a relationship with the Creator called God, Yahweh, and all that and all that. And then God told him, Abraham, leave this lifestyle, leave this one. There is another special one I'm preparing for you. You understand? Something told Mark Zuckerberg, leave. Mark Zuckerberg, was he not in Harvard or MIT or one of those very great schools? You know the sacrifice. People steal and kill to go to those schools. This guy dropped the pen and walked away from there. Is it not foolish? When you think in the way of big thinkers, people who have limited frame of reference will think you are foolish and stupid. When you imagine possibilities that the average mind cannot see. So the first step to thinking big is to give yourself the permission to dream. So this may involve suspending disbelief. The second step is to write down your dream. Write down your dream. There's a place in the Bible, called, in the book of Habakkuk. It said, write the vision and make it plain. Write down your dream. The reason why Christianity is one of the most powerful religions today, because the history, the belief system, everything is codified in the 66 books called the Holy Bible. And that's why the Holy Bible will remain the bestseller till Jesus Christ comes. That's why there are many other religions without deference to their, I do not speak against any other religion, because I believe that religion is, you have a freedom, inalienable rights to worship anything you want to worship. So I subscribe to Christianity, but I don't impose my Christianity on others. Right? However, I can persuade you with so many arguments that Christianity is the best, arguably, because of the unique system and because of the fact that it is Christianity that shapes the belief system of this world. Even in the recording of time, BC, AD, it's all from Christianity. BC, bicentennium before Christ, AD, Anno Domini, after the death of Christ. Are we together? So the history of the world has been shaped by Christianity. So, is that not powerful? So it all began from the thoughts of one man called Jesus Christ. So we are talking about thinking big now. The last speaker talked about this when she said, who are your stakeholders? So the third step to thinking big is for you to connect what is at stake. Get clear about what your stake is. Why you must think big. When I was sitting there, I said, let me even check the internet and find out the best schools, music schools in Nigeria. I was pleasantly surprised to see that Eagles Music was number 4 on the list of 7 of the best schools. Please give yourself a round of applause for that. How many of us have heard about Muson Center in Lagos? Right. So what is the difference between Muson Center and Eagles Music School? Can someone tell me?
What Muson does is they train already talented students from grade 5, actually. But Eagles Music, we take children from the very cradle, and then we bring out the talent in them. So that's a very, very different thing between the two schools of music.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for that contribution. You see, one striking thing is that Muson Center has deep pockets. Do you understand that? They have very, very viable financial backing. So they have no choice. In fact, if they are not number 1, they should be jailed. But one thing that also surprises me that Eagles Music School, I don't see the deep pockets. Do you have some billionaires behind you? Let me know now so that I will charge something for this my talk. Oh. But for me, Eagles Music School, I see passion, I see dedication, and I see big thinkers. Give yourself a round of applause. That's why when I started talking, I said, well, these are things you probably already know because you're already doing the things that I'm trying to talk about. You're already thinking beyond where you should be, because if somebody coming here now say, this is just one building, this is, But the things I see you do are things that make me believe that you guys or the management of the school is made up of big thinkers. So the good thing is that thinking big is a learnable skill. It is a what? Your community can either grow or shrink your thinking. So as you develop this skill, become intentional and deliberate about who you hang out with. Encourage one another to voice your wildest dreams and celebrate wins together. Our last speaker talked about the Nigerian factor. A lot of social media platforms that I belong, one of the good things about all these WhatsApp social media platforms, you come across all sorts of people. The noisemakers are usually the people who criticize and the negative thinkers. Is that what you see in your platforms? The noisemakers. And it's talking negative. So people tend to restrict their thinking and their thoughts direction, which get paralyzed to think beyond. Because of this, their action too stops. People are satisfied with small achievements and they have in their lives and consider themselves failures for not being highly successful. That's why in Nigeria, we are always envious of people who we perceive as more successful than us. And the minute those people have challenges, we begin to laugh at them. I was telling my wife yesterday, I was talking about, I don't know how we started talking about Prophet T.B. Joshua, the expose on BBC, and all that. I told to my wife, I said, look, I have developed my thought process to the point where I try to be objective about issues. T.B. Joshua, whether he did all those things or he did not do all those things, my focus is to look at the positive things that he did. If he did those things, it's between him and then the God that will judge him. I don't have the prerogative of judgment. I don't have the prerogative to condemn anybody. Because the creator God that I know, right, says that judgment belongs to who? Him. Right? And says that my own duty is to work out my own salvation and leave the other man to work out his own salvation. So, if that is the case, if I see you, I will disregard the negative and then take the positive and move on with my life. Are we together? Think big. Think different. Think uniquely. And then you will see the value in everyone you come across. Are we together? There is nobody that does not have a nuisance value. There is nobody that does not have a nuisance value. So the purpose here today is to recalibrate our thinking process, to make us understand that it is possible to think differently. And if we want to excel holistically, we must think differently, albeit think big. So like I said, I met this young man called Ugochukwu Imegu. He's in his 40s. But this man goes to many countries worldwide just to motivate people to think differently. And he makes billions from it. And he has polio. Works like this. But the man said that, look, when he was diagnosed with polio at birth. So, like a lot of people, he could have been wallowing in self-pity. Oh, I have polio, and all that. But he chose to develop his mind. Are we together? He developed his mind. And now he's sought after worldwide as a motivational speaker, as a wealth creation coach. So if we are from a negative orientational background, there are some of us who are from backgrounds where superstition and all those things have warped our sense of reasoning. Are we together? It doesn't mean that, we are done for. Every day is a lifetime. You've heard that before. So you can be intentional today you can change your thought pattern. You can decide, to start to think differently. It may be difficult, it may be hard, but the more you do it, the more you become used to it. And as you think broadly, you begin to perceive things in new ways. You concentrate on potential and solutions rather than constraints and challenges. Are we together? Potentials and solutions rather than constraints and challenges. You begin to develop a greater capacity for imagination, innovation, and risk-taking. So these people that you hear about every day, that you see on news, these people don't have two heads. They are human beings like you. But the difference is that they think differently from you. They've made that decision at one time in their lives. They may have been given that orientation. They may have come across that motivation. They may have been mentored into it. Whatever way, But the point is, as a result of that difference in thinking, they began to improve themselves holistically and began to achieve those things that they dreamed about. I talked about noticing the ranking of Eagles music on the internet as number 4. But my challenge to us today is that we can think our way through to becoming number 1. Eagles Music School. Eagles Music School. Yes. You know why we have to become number 1? You gave me the main difference between your curriculum and that of Muson School. You can actually identify and capture raw talent even before people like Muson will get across to those people. Have you ever heard this phrase, diamond in the rough? So if you think innovatively and differently and expand and broaden your mental horizon and capacity, in no distant future, you will even outshine Muson School. Are we together? So there are 5 key takeaways, 5 key things you achieve when you begin to think big. You begin to believe that success is possible. When we're talking about wishful thinking, like there are some pastors that will take your money, go and buy private jet, you'll be trekking and tell you, yes, your billions in the... No, we're not talking about that. Thinking big, thinking positively means that you dream it, I can achieve it. Then you begin to acquire the knowledge, that is the how to achieve it. And then you walk towards it. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with what? 1 step. You begin to groom yourself towards it. I talked about Mark Zuckerberg. After that meeting he had with his friends about his idea, did he go and sleep? There's this movie. What's the name of that movie? How many of us have seen that movie about Mark Zuckerberg's life? I like reading and watching things like that, because it gives you the secrets of how these people actually achieve those things and makes you understand that, like you, that if they could do it, you see their thought process, see the mistakes they made. If they could do it, then you can do it. So I like reading about those people, and that's another thing you can do to also broaden your horizon. After that meeting he had with his friends, it was at night after class, he had that meeting and then told them, I'm dropping out of college. I'm going to pursue this dream. There's this thing called Facebook, this social network and all that. And people were like, are you mad? But today, Mark Zuckerberg is in charge of the whole internet, right? Started with an idea. Started with him acquiring the knowledge, developing himself, moving, and here we are. So it's never easy. But when you start that process, you will be able to believe that to succeed is possible, and then you begin to gain the knowledge. Then, how many of us know the 2 different meanings of fear? Forgetting everything and then running away. Face everything and rise. That face everything and rise. Some other people say false evidence that appears real. Which of the 2 definitions would you rather ascribe to or subscribe to? Face everything and rise. But is it easy? Have you ever heard of phobias? Is there anybody in this world that doesn't have a phobia? There's nobody that doesn't have a phobia. But do you know that it is possible to overcome phobias? The best and only way to overcome phobia is to change your thinking pattern, your thought process. Are we together? That's the best and only way to overcome phobia. And the greatest and most debilitating phobia is fear. Fear of something. Right? So if you forget everything and run away, does that thing change? But if you face it, facing it makes it easier for you to overcome it, right? Facing it also makes you realize that the greatest thing to fear is fear itself. That thing you are afraid of may not actually kill you. There are some people that are afraid of dodo. If you read about phobias, there are some very stupid phobias, which makes you know that that thing you are afraid of, another person has overcome. That thing that person is afraid of, you have overcome, right? So some of these things are not really, but because we lack the knowledge, or because some psychological reasons, we just see them as something to be afraid of. So action, one of the takeaways of thinking big is that you are spurred and motivated into action, and it cures that fear easily. Another takeaway is that you begin to value yourself. Our last speaker talked about self-esteem and self-worth. You will never sell yourself short when you begin to think big. Are we together? You will never sell yourself short. Then you begin to surround yourself with positive influences. Last but not the least, you will take the initiative to build relationships. Take the initiative to build relationships. So the 5 takeaways when you begin to think big is that you begin to believe that success is possible, and then the knowledge of how to succeed will follow. You take action that will cure all your fears. You will never sell yourself short, number 3. Number 4, you surround yourself with positive influences. Then finally, you take the initiative to build relationships. So how many of us want to change our thinking patterns today? How many of us want to pay me 1 million naira for this lecture? You know the people that raise their hand to the second question, the people that are ready to change their thinking patterns. I'll tell you why. When we started our lectures, when we started this our mentorship session with my mentor, Ugochukwu, he will give you the first 2-3 days free. Then he'll tell you that he wants to bring you into a private mentoring session of over a period of time. Then he'll tell you you have to pay millions for it. Should I tell you that secret? So that if I tell you the secret now, when you get to meet him now, you at that point, whether or not you can achieve it, what Ugochukwu is looking for is not your money. He's looking at your ability to be able to apply that knowledge that he has taught you. Because he has taught you the understanding that pursue knowledge. Knowledge makes the difference. The reason why those successful people are successful is because they've thought it wise enough to acquire the knowledge to succeed. And then they value the knowledge correctly. So when I tell you, how many people want to pay me, will not that should pay me, will want to pay me. If you have the mind to pay me, that means you understand the value of the knowledge I've imparted to you. And then you value knowledge and you pursue knowledge in your private time. Are we together? Knowledge is what? That is not an empty phrase. Knowledge is power. Know the truth and it to do what? These phrases are not empty phrases. I pray that we are able to individually and collectively explore the value or the wealth or the meaning of those phrases, and our lives will never remain the same. Thank you.
Come on. You can make that applause better. Come on.